Hello, hi, welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. My name is Kathomi and welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for subscribing. If you have not yet, remember to click the subscribe button, the red button right below this video. Remember to leave a kind comment and let's get into the topic. Let's get into the topic of this video. School, of course, there was no the only physical protection that existed was probably gates or fences. So in terms of the classmates that we had, in terms of the teachers that we were interacting with in school, and the policies that were implemented in schools to try and discipline, I say discipline because there's a very controlling system in boarding schools in Kenya that render a lot of children depressed, because children are supposed to grow feeling loved, children are supposed to grow feeling accepted, children are supposed to be nurtured into their personalities in a way that also aligns with working harmoniously with other people. But you understand that sometimes there's not an enough accountability system, in the sense of children are just given instructions and you're told you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do this, and if you're not doing this, it's like a form of enslavement to children. And you know that is working in the exact opposite of how children are supposed to be growing up, because children are actually supposed to be growing up in an environment filled with love, environment filled with freedom and truth that enables them to also connect to who they are and to grow from a point of view of love. But because they're in school, and especially if they're in boarding schools, and there's a lot that takes place. For example, in the schools that I went to, in the boarding schools that I was taken to, what I got to understand, and I don't say this to complain, I'm saying this to shed light on the problem that also takes a huge part at chipping away our sense of our own identity as individual beings, right? The things that chipped away. Because it is important for all children to go to school. The solution cannot be children not going to school, but rather raising awareness of the situations that happen in schools, so that maybe caregivers or anybody that is interacting with a child whom is in a school, for example, in a boarding school in Kenya, should be able to demonstrate as much compassion for children, because compassion doesn't really happen in schools, because many people in authority could be having narcissistic traits, could be exhibiting and not very kind behavior, not very supportive behavior, not very accommodative of the needs of a child. So as I was saying, when I was in school, I realized that number one, the system that was already in place was already against children who are, I don't want to say really of African descent, but that is the norm. For example, finding that there are schools that could not allow you to have hair that looks like mine in school, that the hair that I have right now will be rendered indecent, will be rendered inappropriate, will be rendered not neat, and any form of authority that will identify you with hair that looks like mine will subject you to punishments and ask you to either shave it off completely, humiliate you in front of people as if there is something wrong with hair growing on your head, or subject you to very severe forms of punishment. And as you all know, that this is the natural state of hair of anybody with African, or people who have African descent, in the sense of people who have melanin. This is how your hair grows. So there was a system that was placed, that even from the way that your head will be, in which I don't go against the fact that it should be reputable for the sake of the school, but there were severe punishments that could be rendered on children just because maybe there's 2 or 3 strands of your hair that was not completely laying down, in which our hair does not naturally lay down. That is point number one. Point number two would be in the form of cleanliness, that many in our school, in the boarding schools I went to, there used to be people who are called matrons, and they were very cruel. They were supposed to act as helpers to enabling, maybe if a child is struggling in the capacity for cleanliness, because maybe taps are not enough, maybe a child is struggling mentally, and they may not be able to take care of themselves properly. Matrons existed to take care of you in the dormitories are where we used to sleep, and you find that a matron will come and perform very unfair forms of treatment on children. Okay, yes, they were women, but they were very cruel women. They were very cruel women because they'll provide very unfair punishments, speak very derogatorily and very condescendingly to children. They will beat us as well for unfairness, such as maybe your bed has not been laid straight enough, right? Straight enough. So the standard for straight enough was there should not even be a wrinkle on your bed. Mind you, this is a child that's growing up. This is just a child. There's no, I mean, making your bed is good enough, but to imagine that it has to have certain standards of perfection was unfair. Number two, um was unfair because not only that, still in the sense of cleanliness, there were probably the way you dress, mostly in the dress code that children had. We used to be punished for not being clean enough, and that would be because you used to be given uniforms, right? And you're a child, probably you're 10, 11, 12 years old. You're only given three shirts, you're only given three skirts, you're only given probably four, not exceeding 4 pairs of socks, and all of them are always supposed to be clean. So that is after you get to school. If you go to the classes now, the side of the classes, which you're supposed to report in school by like 8, because it's supposed to be similar to the functionality of a working system where you wake up in the morning at 8 a.m. and you spend the whole day at work up to 5 o'clock, and then by 5 p.m. you break from school to go to the hostels, and you are supposed to ensure that you have cleaned yourself and you have taken care of your clothes. Only three, right? And I know it is very easy to think, well, that is manageable, but with consideration to the fact that when you go to school, to the classes, there is workload awaiting you. Like the stress of the workload that children are given in school is crazy, in the name of assignments, because there would be like 12 subjects and each of them gives you an assignment, right? Imagine having 12 subjects of assignment that every teacher prioritizes according to how much they think is necessary for their subject. And you are also supposed to perform to 100% to each and every subject. Ensure that you don't fail any assignment, or else you will be punished in very severe forms, probably asked to wash the pavement, or you sleep in the assembly ground, or you would just very severe forms of offense. I assume that we have 12 subjects with teachers who will still beat us. Should you not only be fail to do one assignment, but also not being able to match up to the bar of performing to the very best of the standard of what is needed to be able to perform. If it is A, if it is 90, if it is 80, that is the cut mark, you will still be beaten. Now back to that stress of the workload. You're supposed to also ensure that even with the scarcity of the resources that exist in the hostels, because of course the hostels are only going to accommodate probably like 5 taps. Mind you, we are in a school where we are probably more than 1,000 people. We are more than 1,000, and there's like 5, or to the higher side 7 taps that may not be very actively getting water out of it, but you're supposed to ensure that you still have washed, you've showered, you have done it on time, because by the time you get out of school at 5 p.m. you have 1 hour to take care of yourself, to clean yourself, to eat, and to be back in school, to the classes at 7, by 7, but some schools used to even be 6:30, and to ensure that you're still in school, that you stay in the classes right from 6:30 p.m. to around 9 to 10 p.m. From 10 p.m. you break again to go back to the hostels, and then you're supposed to wake up at around 4 or 5 a.m. to go for morning preps. that comes, morning preparations for classes, so that in case you can do your assignments or whatever. And this morning assignments was supposed to be, this morning preparations, right, was supposed to be from 4 a.m. to 6 p.m. Now imagine doing this on a on an everyday basis. It could be, at least if it was from Monday, not even Monday, but like when you think about, it's actually supposed to help. It's supposed to be a system that works to help a child, and that is the amount of stress that a child has to go through, fearing being beaten in between the day, fearing, because there was also something called movement by running, which meant that you are not allowed to walk in school. Walking will be seen as a sign of laziness. So by the time you wake up on your feet by 4 a.m., you're forever running to class, running to I don't know where, running to take your food, running to be able to find that the tap is empty, or at least there's space for you to take care of, there's space for you to take care of yourself, the scarcity of resources, the stress of teachers, of the workload, and the matrons who are coming to beat you for the sake of not being clean enough, of not making your bed, of not probably saying hi, you know, very unfair forms of punishment. Point number Point number three is the form of punishments that people receive. Now, we've already understood that in schools, children didn't have much, or to any form of power really, because you're supposed to just take in instructions. You go to school, to boarding schools, to be taught that the one thing you're supposed to do as a child is just taking information. Now, this may work against a child, because when they go home, most of the time, that's where they're taught how to love, they're taught how to be, they're taught how to exist, and they're supported to grow and nurture their own personalities into functioning children, And then now you get into an environment where an adult that you do not know, but you're supposed to just respect and believe that they have and hold your best interests, begin to tell you what to do every single time. And there is a level of obedience to it, for the sake of they have been entrusted to that role, for they have passed certain standards that qualify them to be teachers. And then there's also the thin line between, they might actually be narcissistic. They have narcissistic personality disorder. They do not care about the amount of damage. They do not care how much of their authority they can exploit into what they tell children to do, for the sake of their own ego and not for the well-being of the child. So this comes in the forms of punishments, where you find that you could be punished because you probably did not say hi to a teacher. Very severe punishments, actually, because this will take place in accordance to how much a teacher would resent you, to their own personal selfish gains and own desire to show some form of control that they have over children. I will make a separate video about narcissistic personality disorders, about people with narcissistic personality disorders, and I'm not the only person who talks about them. There are so many content creators that also show them, but basically, narcissists are wired for cruelty. But here's the thing, it's not only teachers and peers. Sometimes those are even the safest people to go to. There could be students, there could be your classmates, there could be your friends whom you make in school and whom you're supposed to work together with in order to survive the situations of school, who then decide that they would use that opportunity, they will use the power that they have, to exploit the other students, especially students who could not stand up for themselves, especially students who could not speak up for themselves, especially students who did not have a form of power. For you understand how society may work according to patriarchy, and there could be students who got from better families than others. There were students who had a form of relation to authority figures in school or authority figures in the country, and they would always perform some form of cruelty on other students. And to add this pressure onto the fact that the school is already working against you as a child, because you're trying to be programmed into a very controllable human being, one that does not speak, one that does not think for themselves, or rather one that is more, the system is more intentional in ensuring that students are better at remembering what you have been taught, and not necessarily nurturing who they are to grow into full human beings in order to be able to support themselves and the decisions that they make. And also you come to understand that a lot of the information that we were also taught in schools may not necessarily be applicable or be very truthful in life, especially if you did geography. But that's a whole other video into the amount of lies that we were beaten for, and yet when you come into the real world, you come to understand that that was not really the truth. It was just a system that was set to just control, because lies are very controlling. So the punishments are also a form of cruelty, one of the worst forms of cruelty that children face in schools. And narcissistic peers, narcissistic authority figures, narcissistic influence from other people in school. Number 5, that was number 4? Let me just say number 5. In case I have skipped, let me know in the comments section, because I'm saying this from my head, from every experience. I want this to be as authentic and as relatable and as natural as possible, but I will definitely have to carry a pen and paper next time. Number 5 was also the pressure from at home. As you may know, not every child comes from a very functioning background, and I don't just mean in the sense of being able to be provided for having oh, forgive the noise, in case you can hear the noise. There is people playing basketball at the background, and yeah, but let's focus on what I'm trying to say. I will try and look for a more quiet space next time. So there was also the pressure of children who come from dysfunctional backgrounds. And as you know, a child needs stability to grow, a child needs good to grow, a child needs provision to grow. A child is like, the way when you plant a seed and you want it to grow, you need to nurture it with a lot of pampering, with a lot of kindness, with a lot of love. And then you find that most children don't come from functioning families, where it could be that their parents are narcissistic, it could be their caregivers, it could be their siblings who do not support them in the ways that will best help them or are considerate of their best interest, and it works against them, it works against their concentration in school, it works against the personality that they adopt to be able to also have clarity and peace in their minds, although prayers is a very good solution to this. So yes, I also saw some teachers who are kind enough, who are angels to people, because they were able to know that not every child comes from a very good background. This does not mean having a mom and a dad, and there were children who also came from such backgrounds, but there was a form of dysfunction in that family that would make the child act in otherwise dysfunctional ways, right? In other ways, not the normal way. And they would bring their dysfunction upon other children, and they would cause other children to struggle to concentrate in school. They would struggle to pay attention. They would struggle to be able to know what is rightful for them. They would perform their forms of the mistreatment that they're going through from their homes, they bring it to classrooms. And for the children who are able to speak up, they were able to fight for themselves. But there's children who, because of the background they come from, also they're only taught that they're supposed to take in information, and they don't have the right of their own voice, which is a very bad thing to train a child. It was better you teach a child to be able to speak up for themselves, so that they may learn what should align with them, what is the right way to align with them, and how to have the discernment to tell them that is truth or that is false, that is a lie, that is truth for you, right? So yes, and if you feel like there's something I've not yet highlighted, let me know in the comment section, and I will be very verbal about it. I'll be able to bring awareness about it, so that you never know who needs to know this. Maybe there's parents who are not enlightened of this, and now they need that awareness. Or if there's somebody who's just trying to take on a healing journey, and they thought all those things that were happened to them in boarding schools was normal. No, most of it was unfair, and that is why many adults also struggle to express themselves. They struggle to know what is best for them. They have personality disorders. They are not very functioning human beings. They're not very present in their everyday life, because they adopted coping survival mechanisms to be able to just endure and persevere that situation, and they still held on to this coping mechanisms, and it still shows up even as to them as parents, to them as in their relationships, in their places of work, and Many people still think it is normal. It is not normal, but the root cause is highly the schools that we went to and what happened to us in those schools, because we spent a great portion of our lives, a great portion of our times in those schools, not even in our parents, not even in the presence of our caregivers. And of course, having to lose a loved one when you're still in school is equally a very great tragedy, and it still happens to people. And it's also a great tragedy to a child, because they have to now shift what they used to know to now the absence of that parent. It's equally a form of trauma. So there's so many, but me, I've just mentioned them in the sense of the schools we went to, because I think that is something that many people do not like to admit, that our schools negatively affected us more than they enriched us. They did not really enrich us with education. They mostly taught us how to be controllable, how to just silence ourselves and accept everything that the world feeds us. And then you find that this does not settle as truth, because there's so much pain in the world, there's so much lies, there's so much confusion, there's so many systems that are not working to the appropriateness or the wellness of majority of people. And so don't beat yourself up if you feel like you're still struggling to find yourself. There's a very high probability what happened to you in boarding school altered your normal functioning. So sit down with yourself. um, Remember, look at what happened to you in school. Look at how speak about what happened to you in school. Speak about it to a caregiver. Speak about it to people, and until the truth until you feel free from the punishments, until you feel free from the humiliation and the cruelty that you experienced, not only from the teachers but also from your peers, but also from the system and the information that you were fed, because most of it was lies. And until you find your identity again, until you stop hating yourself. Because one thing I know for sure was the fruit of going to schools was that most of us hated ourselves. I, for example, did not appreciate how I look, and yet now I've come to understand that there's nothing wrong with how I look. I'm actually very blessed to even have the features that I have, but because of certain bullying, so many people who did not like themselves, and so many teachers who also did not appreciate themselves, they thought it was okay to speak evil to other people's children, and they made us hate ourselves. In fact, that is one of the things that you learn from school, is how to hate yourself and how to believe that everybody else is right except you. But it could equally be very much vice versa, that in fact they were the most wrong, and love was supposed to be taught to you, love was supposed to be poured into you, kindness was supposed to be poured into you. You were supposed to exist in an environment filled with a lot of peace, so that you could understand, interpret information, discover yourself, explore yourself, nurture your growth, find yourself. And that is the journey that most of us are taking now as adults. Or other outside factors of also just the kind of friends that we had, the kind of environments we were existing in, the kind of environment that we grew up in, the kind of environment that we were exposed to. Even at home, most of it was not very healing, most of it was not very appropriate for the information that a child would need in very many concepts. But in this video, I have highlighted the top 5, I think I've said 5 points that are a great that are traumatizing factors for most of us who endured the 844 system under the public boarding schools in Kenya. But systems have changed, hopefully, thankfully. There is more awareness now, there is more information happening, and more people are coming into alignment with the truth of who they are supposed to be, and they are getting back to better versions of themselves. Anyway, I believe I'm going to be calling us overcomers because of the things that we've had to endure. Tell me if that is a nice name for my squad, for anybody that believes in this channel, anybody that supports the growth of this channel. You are an overcomer. Do not feel defeated. Do not feel like the weight of the world is too heavy on you. Do not feel like the burden on your shoulders will overwhelm you. You are an overcomer. You have overcome so many things for you to even have the opportunity to see this video means you're still here, and there's still time for us to do better. There's still time for us to heal. There's still time for us to change the things that are not working for us, and to make better decisions for ourselves, and to become better people for ourselves, and to become better people for society, and to encourage the rightful way of living in the rightful situations, and to align with situations of integrity. Anyway, I'm going to be calling us overcomers. Tell me if that name aligns or it does not align. Tell me if you prefer a better name. Tell me if you prefer no name. Let me know how you feel about this video in the comment section. Let me know everything that you would like to know more. If it's about me, if it's about my experiences, if it's about life, I will update you guys as much as I can, as often as I can, and I'll be dropping videos as often as I can. And remember to stay safe. Remember to take on a healing journey. Remember to remain dedicated to your healing journey. And you are an overcomer. Bye bye.